నమస్కారం. డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం విద్యార్థిని విద్యార్థులకు స్వాగతం.
Library automation generally means use of information technology, including the communication technology, for library operations. Generally, we use library automation for computerizing the library operations, the housekeeping operations, and information handling. In the housekeeping operations, we use for circulation, acquisition, cataloging, serials control, and other many operations and the services. To discuss the topic, we have two experts in our studios. Professor E. Amaravati garu is a university librarian, University of Hyderabad, and Professor L. J. Haravu, a former chief librarian, ICRSAT, Hyderabad. Professor Amaravati garu, why we need library automation?
Well, traditionally the libraries have been functioning with manual operated systems where human beings or the professional library staff have been performing duties, day-to-day activities of the library without any kinds of help from the modern technology. But right now the technology is very much ripe and it has got into the libraries very aggressively, and now the automation, that is computerization, use of computers in the libraries have become a necessity to automate the every activity of the library or every function of the library, so that it can reach to a larger number of users who are far and also very not only near and far, but every section of the society who is involved in library functions or library services.
Thank you, Professor Amaravati garu. Professor Harav, we have different academic libraries at different levels, maybe school, college, university, and even in the university we have the central library and the department libraries. Do all these libraries need same level of automation, or do they want different automation requirements have?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because when we talk of academic library automation, we have to remember that there are different types of environments even in an academic institutional situation. For instance, you may have a very large university library, and associated with that university library there could be several small college libraries or several small departmental libraries. So when we talk of automation, I think we need to talk of automation not only of a single library, but of a group of libraries which are within the same campus, for instance. In other words, what we are now looking at when we talk of library automation is not just one library, but a network of libraries. For instance, it will be wonderful if a big university like, say, Osmania University or Hyderabad University or Andhra University could link its resources with smaller college libraries elsewhere in the state. This would be a great help for these small colleges, because they don't have this kind of resources that a big university library has. So when we talk of automation today, we have to look at the different use scenarios that are there within a campus, within a university federated system, so that the benefits of automation can go far and wide beyond the confines of a single library. I think that is the key for today when we talk of library automation, and therefore each library will need different kinds of infrastructure, different kinds of software, different kinds of hardware, different kinds of connectivity. So these are some of the issues that are important to be looked at when we talk of automation in academic libraries.
So what sort of infrastructure requirements are generally need for library automation? Professor Harav.
I'd like to briefly supplement what Professor Dr. Ram Reddy mentioned. I think we should not forget that automation of libraries is a very complex task. It requires highly skilled software professionals. It requires highly specialized kind of software itself, and then it requires various types of infrastructure. So there is a tendency in many countries to think that library automation is a very simple affair and that anybody can do this, anybody can develop a library automation software package. This is not correct. Therefore, it's all the more reason why we should depend on another agency or another library or a good software consultancy company which has the experience of building, not only building software, but also implementing it in a particular library and then training the people who are in the library. These are very important issues. Coming now specifically to the question of infrastructure, when we talk of automation, we think only of computers, but computers are only one very small component of any good automation system. There are many other things that are required. For instance, you will need, for instance, a good server, which is also a computer, no doubt. You will need a good server, you will need a good local area network kind of infrastructure. You will require access to external resources. For instance, when you talk of a library catalog, when the cataloging operation is done, it's not that this particular catalog operation is done in an island unto itself. It has to have access to external resources. Now, these external resources may be in some other country, it could be in another computer somewhere else. And nowadays, when we talk of external resources, invariably we talk of internet. In other words, the internet has become an essential infrastructure so far as library automation is concerned. Not only for accessing external databases, but also for sharing information across different communities, across different libraries. For instance, there may be a remote user who wants to have access to your library. He must have the facility to connect to your computer, to your database, so that he needs access via the internet. So there are many different kinds of infrastructure. One of them is the hardware. Of course, you need software, various kinds of software, operating system software, networking operating software, database management software. Of course, you need an underlying operating system itself, and you need hardware, networking resources like the access to internet, access to an intranet perhaps, a local area network. These I would call as essential infrastructure for a good library automation solution. Whether it is a single library, whether it's a multiple library, whether it's a large library, this is true for all kinds of libraries.
Yeah. Then selection of hardware and software is a very, very crucial thing in planning the library automation. So what are how we select the hardware for the automating the academic libraries?
Okay.
So
coming to the hardware selection, well, for all operations within the library, I would put it in if it can be prioritized in the sense that all housekeeping operations can be taken as a priority. Then you can create information resources within the library, and you can network, and those kinds of things need a powerful database server and also several nodes within the library. Nodes means the systems which are likely to be or which are going to be installed in different sections for the library staff to operate these systems for database creation or any kind of activities. And to select a server, you need to know you need to decide on certain parameters like the size of the library and the growth, the rate of growth of the library, in addition in terms of adding the reading materials, and also the transactions which takes place, like the number of users it is going to serve, and the budget, the amount of budget which is going to be spent on this. And if we can look at these parameters and decide a configuration for a server, configuration of a server, and the server becomes a critical component in all the operations, and for that a database server and some systems in the acquisition, technical processing, serials control, circulation, and even office automation, and some of these areas which need to be installed, and then they are to be networked within the building so that all the operations becomes online. In that particular sense of the term, the database server and the different nodes are to be decided based on the functionalities of the library. And when it comes to configuration, the configuration is such a big word again. In the configuration, we need to decide about this disk space, the RAM itself or the speed of the machine, and also the network interface card, and also the database size of the database which need to be created has to be the main focus for selecting a hardware configuration. And it should be again more emphasis need to be given to a modular approach again. The systems need to be upgraded as the technology goes up, and in that kind of a situation, without disturbing the existing hardware, you should be in a position to add on either the hardware, hard disk, or the memory, or any activities without disturbing the existing structure. So that is the reason we have to really look at in selecting the hardware.
Thank you. Then selecting the software, one should be very cautious about the suitability software package for a library, especially the academic library. So what are the criteria generally one should follow for selecting a library software package?
Yeah, following on Dr. Ram Reddy's comments, I think we should remember that there are different types of libraries, different requirements are there. I think the issue that he very correctly mentioned, the issue of scalability. I mean, today you may want to have a particular kind of software or a particular kind of hardware, but within the next 5 years, the whole requirement may change. So you require the capacity to keep on upgrading and upscaling your operations. This is important. And now coming to software, again, you have different types of software. For instance, there are some software which will work only on a single computer system. A small library may be adequate for that small library to buy a single user system. On the other hand, you have multi-user systems where it can run off a network server on a local area network, and then you are able to connect several users to that network server. So that's a multi-user system. But then you have bigger systems where you have a client server kind of systems where you can connect not just 10 users or 20 users, but even thousands of users, depending on the nature of the particular software that you choose. For instance, if you take a very large library like Library of Congress, at any point of time there will probably be several thousand users directly logged on to the Library of Congress. Similarly, if you take a very large university library, which has study centers all over the country or all over the city, or a big city like Delhi or Hyderabad, this kind of library would require a high-end software which will allow several connections to the database of that particular library. So they have to choose probably a web-based, internet-based kind of software which will run from a web server rather than from a local area network server. So these are some of the important considerations that one has to keep in mind when choosing a particular software. Whether today you may run off a local area network, but you must buy or lease a software which allows you to change from a local area network server to a web server. That kind of scalability is very, very, very important when you think of software acquisition or software leasing in library automation.
Yeah. Database creation is the first step in the practical approach to the library automation. Mm-hmm. So how to start this database creation activity, Professor Ram Reddy garu?
In the beginning I mentioned that the library automation is the first step is to create a database of its own, like converting the card catalog into the machine readable catalog, and converting the catalog into machine readable requires the hardware and the software, and apart from that, a decision has to be taken by each and every library that how to create the database. Maybe the library should decide on a particular date which is which can be a cutoff date, and from that day onwards whatever the new books come into the library can directly get into the database, and the books or the records which are already there in the library, which can be taken as a retrospective conversion of data, and for that you can take it as a separate project and then start creating the database as simultaneously along with the current records. For this purpose, what a particular decision need to be taken is to create a database or data sheet, and if you create a data sheet with various fields, and then these data sheets can be taken to the library stack area and then start creating the data sheets, and then those data sheets can be checked properly before a data entry takes place. And even after taking the inputting data or data entry is taking place, there should be a mechanism where people need to check the data and then put it into the system for use, so that your retrieval becomes very efficient and your database becomes error-free data, and which is very critical for database creation, and it is absolutely necessary for that way of doing this.
Yeah. Generally, standard means generally we mean quality. Here in the standard means also compatibility. So suppose one library wants to exchange data with another library. So there is a need for the standards. Professor Rao, what is the importance of standards in the database creation and development?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think the most important resource in an automated library system is its catalog. And we should not forget that when you think of computerization or library automation, we should not think of the catalog or a database as simply an electronic equivalent of the card catalog. The database has to be really much more, there must be much more value addition to the library's catalog records. Then only the whole purpose of using the computer is fully satisfied and fully served. Now, Professor Ram Reddy mentioned that one has to take a lot of pains to ensure that the quality of the catalog is good. Now, one way of getting good quality of the catalog is to use an authoritative cataloging resource. Now, for instance, if you take the Western world, the amount of primary cataloging that they do is probably only 15% or 10% of their total collection. 85 to 90% of the catalog records are taken from an authoritative source. Now, what do we mean by an authoritative source? An authoritative source is usually the national library of the country. For instance, in the United Kingdom, it will be the British Library. In the United States of America, it will be the Library of Congress. Now, these agencies are cataloging thousands of books every year, and they use very high standards in their cataloging. For instance, the current standard which is worldwide in use is the MARC standard, or the machine readable catalog standard. Now, this is a standard which is so widely accepted all over the world, right from the Western countries to the East European countries, as well as Southeast and Southeast Asian countries, that it is advantageous for libraries to choose a standard which is global, which is international. Let us not forget that we are today living in a globalized society. We are living in a world which is really global. We cannot afford to ignore global standards. If at all we do that, we will be doing it at our own risk. That means if we don't use international standards, we will not be able to contribute our catalog records to an international source, and we will not be able to take records from an international source because our standards are not similar to theirs. Therefore, I think it's very, very important when we think of automation of a library, particularly academic libraries like universities, for instance, that we should apply international standards. And when we say international standards today, we are talking of standards like the MARC 21, like the ISO 2709 standards, like the Z39.50 standards. These are standards which have been developed, which have been built essentially to see that there is good exchange of data, good exchange of information good access to information, and so on. So, these are standards which one has to consciously look for when considering automation of particularly academic libraries. Lastly, I would like to also mention that when a huge university, let's say like Osmania University or Hyderabad University or Delhi University is automating its library, they should not forget that their resource is a very valuable resource, and the collection, the description of that collection should be so good, should be so complete, should be so consistent that it should be a model for others to follow. Many smaller libraries may simply download the information from, say, Osmania University or Hyderabad University. They do not have to unnecessarily reinvent the wheel by cataloging the same document again and again. So, they need to have the capacity to download. These are some of the issues that one has to look at, and I think the only way of ensuring all this is through good application of international standards. One big problem in our country, I think, is that we have very poor appreciation of these international standards. All of us follow our own standards, and I think this is something that is counterproductive. We should change this, and we should look towards really having international global standards in whatever we do, particularly in the library automation field.
Besides library automation of housekeeping operations and information handling, we also talking about networking. A computer network, basically, a computer network is an interconnected collection of autonomous computers and peripheral devices, that is network components, that allows the network components to work together. And the benefits of this computer network, we can say, it allows users to share hardware, allows information to be shared, allows the electronic transfer of text, allows the decentralization of various data processing functions, allows communication between organizations, allows access to remote databases. What are the other benefits for the library networks, Professor Rao?
Yeah, it's a good question. See, I think we are no longer islands unto ourselves. It's impossible for any library to have everything that is useful to its clients under its own collection. Today, the emphasis is not from collection building, but towards access provision, provision of access, because there is so much information available today that it's impossible for me to collect everything under one roof. I need to have the capacity to provide access to information, irrespective of whether it is in my library, whether it is in another library in my city, or whether it is in some other library somewhere else in the world. Access is the key today, not collection building. Now, if access is the key, then we need to be highly network conscious. We need to be highly network effective. Now, what do we mean by an effective network? An effective network means a network that allows exchange of data, seamless exchange of data. That means I must be able to take data from some other computer somewhere else in the world completely freely and use it for my own library or for my users in my library. That is one aspect of it. The other is I must be able to take data from another center and incorporate that into my database. For instance, supposing I am cataloging, let us say, 5,000 books every year. I do not have to unnecessarily reinvent the wheel by cataloging all the books which are already been cataloged by some other library. So, I must be able to download cataloging data into my collection. Third definition of an effective network is people who need information must have access to very easy and friendly access to your collection. How do they do that? That can only be done if your databases are available on the internet. People can connect to the internet and then again connect to your library's catalog, download information, look at this thing, search your catalog, search other catalogs. So, that's another aspect of effective networking.
What are the general networking components required for academic library networking?
Okay. See, when we are talking about the networking, we are talking in terms of connecting computers. To connect computers, you require different components. The first one, which is a cable itself, a data cable, which can be connecting the server with the nodes, and the another very important component which is required is the switches. The switches play a kind of a junction box from one server connecting various computers, and also to back up the network requires a kind of a backup of power, so that even in the eventualities the online systems are not going to be disturbed if the UPS connectivity is not provided to the switches, and which is very much necessary so that online transactions takes place. And another very important component in the network is the fiber terminating points, where you have the fiber backbone on which the servers are connected, and the server in turn is connected with the different systems. Take for instance in a university where a campus-wide local area network, once it is created, where several computers, they may have small local area networks within the schools or within the departments, and in turn all these are connected on the backbone of the campus network. And the backbone is a major component in the network, and using small networks, smaller local area networks, they become a campus-wide local area network, whereby the sharing of resources becomes much more meaningful. And in a networking, another point I just want to supplement what Professor Haru has mentioned. In a network, what we are actually doing is we are also sharing the hardware components, and we are also sharing the resources which are scattered in a distributed database model, and also we are giving access to the users directly at their desktops, and thereby the libraries now have to focus acquisition to access. That is the latest trend which is to be understood very clearly. Is traditionally the libraries have been acquiring and processing and owning them, but that's no longer possible. In a network situation, the database is going to be sitting in different places, and it's only the network which is going to make it accessibility much more easier for the users at their desktops, and that is what is required for in the networking aspect of a library.
We thank them, Professor Harao, Professor Ramreddy. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
ఈ మన ఉన్నత విద్యా కార్యక్రమాలపై మీ సందేహాలు, సలహాలు, సూచనలు పంపవలసిన చిరునామా: డైరెక్టర్, ఆడియో విజువల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ రీసెర్చ్ సెంటర్, డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, ప్రొఫెసర్ జి రామిరెడ్డి మార్గ్, రోడ్ నంబర్ 46, జూబ్లీ హిల్స్, హైదరాబాద్ 500033.
Ever since the invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg, the print-based documents are dominating the libraries all over the world for the past 5 centuries. Though non-print media and audiovisual media are added to the libraries are predominantly with the print-based documents. The advances in the communication and the information technologies are changing the face of the libraries. More and more electronic documents are added nowadays. Digital libraries are created. Digital library is a collection of digital formats and retrieved over the network or internet. To discuss the topic today, we have two experts in our studios, Professor E. Ramareddy, OSD, Officer on Special Duty, Library, University of Hyderabad, Gachibowli, Hyderabad, and Professor N. Lakshman Rao, Department of Library and Information Science, Usmania University, Hyderabad. Professor Lakshman Rao garu, what is basically meant by a digital library? How it is different from the traditional libraries?
Basically, the moment you say library, our basic purpose is procuring, organizing, storing, and disseminating the information. What we do in traditional libraries is that we basically give importance for the print media or print materials. It could be a book, it could be a journal, it could be any other type of print material. But in the context of the information and communication technology, the most of the material or most of the content, let me use a word, most of the content is coming in the digital form. The moment you say digital form, it means that the content is in zeros and ones, first thing. Second is you need a computer to access this information. Third, the digital concept helps you to access the information whether it is local or remotely available. And therefore, the first shift is from the print media to digital media. Then the second is, the moment you say library, as a librarian, as a library professional, we try to procure the information, organize so that we facilitate the user to get access to the information that is available in print media. Similarly, the digital content is available all over the world, maybe at various websites, maybe at various institution servers. Now, people looking for it, people search for it, but maybe they may not be in a position to identify, they may not be able to access, they may not be knowing how to procure it. So, as a librarian, we try to facilitate to identify the digital information that is available within our library and elsewhere. Only thing is, in our library, you may question, is it only our library or elsewhere? Basically, when we talk in terms of our library, we can also build digital collection. And also we can provide access to the digital collection that is available elsewhere. When you say digital collection developing in our own library, there could be two types. First is you convert the print media into digital media or digital collection. Then the second is you try to create directly digital content. That is by keying in or using the multimedia technique, create a multimedia format and then use it. So ultimately the basic function of a library and library professional is we try to facilitate or we act as an intermediary between the information and the user, and we continue to do same activity, same function. Only thing is the change is from print to digital. That's how you will be able to differentiate mostly from digital to traditional.
Professor Ramareddy garu, so what are the advantages of these digital libraries?
Well, if we have to really summarize the advantages of a digital library from that of a traditional library, I think we should first understand that there is no digital library alone. It always coexists with a print library or a traditional library. It's only the content which is going to be in print as well as in digital formats, and the libraries side by side maintain it. But when it comes to a digital document or a digital resource, we call it, whether it is a journal or a book or any other document which is created in digital format and made it available to the end user, the biggest advantage is that particular document otherwise is not available for access for multiple people, like hundreds of people can access one digital book, whereas a printed book at any given point of time only one person can read. And another very important aspect which we have to look at as far as the digital library is concerned, when the content is available in digital formats and it becomes easier for an end user to make a search across all the digital documents. which is not true when you compare with a traditional library. So, in that sense, a digital document has the biggest advantage of multiple access and also at the same time precise information what a user is looking for. And it is not really a digital book is not really very convenient for anybody to read from page 1 to the end, but it is more of an information resource which you make a search, get the information, and simultaneously number of people can use that information as well or search that information from anywhere. The concept of a digital content availability is that the resource is going to be available like from anywhere, anytime, and can be accessed by anybody. And in that context, digital documents or digital libraries are more conducive to the end users who are trained or who are you are comfortable in accessing such kind of documents using computer and communication as a technology in that sense. These are the advantages. When it comes to limitation, the biggest limitation is at present most users are not yet comfortable in reading the information on the screens. That is the biggest limitation. And another one is that the digital resources, though they are available, and unless there is a good network, unless there is a good infrastructure in an institution or within the library where multiple people can access the resource, it is not going to be really cost effective in the sense. So, that is a biggest limitation. The infrastructure should be made available so that the digital document is readable, accessible by anybody, and that is the limitation. But there was a point where a user was all the time saying that a book can be carried anywhere and you can read either traveling or doing anything. And even the digital document nowadays is possible even to carry. A digital reader or what we call e-book readers, you can download content and then you can carry it anywhere, and you can travel, while traveling you can read or even relax and read. And some of these technological developments are enabling the digital content to be even carried wherever person goes. So, in that context, it is an advantage as well.
Yeah. That means the greatest advantage is you can access and retrieve the information anytime from anywhere.
Correct.
Without the limitations of the space and the time.
Yes.
Yeah, but Chandrasekhar, let me add one at this context. Mostly the moment when we say library, we restrict ourselves to our own collection. For example, a university library, college library. But when you talk in terms of the digital, the limitation of one area, one building or one institution
Yes.
is not there. It could be anywhere. Yeah. And today we are talking in terms of the anytime access, 24/7 access. That facilitates whenever some user finds time, he can use. But earlier what we were talking about, the library, going to library, it is closed at 5 o'clock. So you can't have any access to the information, you can't have access for the book. But now we are able to overcome all these restrictions, and it is become much more easier to access the information. That's how the technology today is providing a wonderful opportunity to the information seekers as well as information handlers. We are in a position to handle the information much better than what we were doing manually.
A user need not visit the library physically,
Yes.
but the library is coming to the desktop of the user.
Like Open University.
Yeah, coming. And Professor Lakshman Dagar, we find several formats in the library, that means physically. Like in digital libraries also, we find several digital formats. What are the major digital formats generally find in the digital libraries?
The formats can be categorized into 4, or you can also make into 5. First is the formats for still image. One of them is GIF, is very popular, graphic interchange format. Then another one is a TIFF, SVG, BMP. BMP also everywhere we saw .bmp, or PICT, that picture,
Sure.
JPG. Then second category is sound and audio. As I was just not telling MP3 and you were telling about MP4. And also another one is WAV. WAV is a dot. Or AAC, advanced audio coding. Like that there are different formats are there. But all are not popular. What I was talking about, giving example, they are very popular. Then the third one is video or moving images. Whenever you see any movie getting the CD, you find MPEG. That's everybody knows, whoever uses the CD, they know MPEG. Then there are another one, AVI, audio video interleaved. Then going to the fourth one is textual. Everybody knows PDF, right? Portable document format. Once upon a time it was a very difficult. Now because it is freely downloadable, with which you will be able to read any PDF document. Today PDF is most popular format of the information. Then also XML is also another format which you can say for textual. There is also another category that is being stated is general, where they say advanced systems format is being used. So that's how these are formats, and in each category you find many number of formats. Maybe these formats may long lasting. Some of them may be modified. Some of them new formats may come. Today the storage media, so many storage medias are coming and so many storage medias are disappearing. Similarly these formats also. So as a library we need to store the information for longer time. The Global Registry of Digital Format, after evaluating the different formats, it is in a position to give us the characteristics of each format which we can study, and that helps us for preservation of the information in various formats. But here let me also add one point. The format that is available, that is the document available with a specific format, we may download and we may use. But only thing is, when we want to preserve, should we preserve in that original format or should we change into another format is another one question because of preservation. Second is, when you want to create yourself a document, in which format should we create and preserve? So in that context, probably study of formats, understanding the formats and their characteristics gains importance.
Mainly the HTML web pages, that is a very important point.
Yeah, in fact, most of the formats which are popular as of now, and most of the publishing, electronic publishing which is happening, and if you go to any electronic resources which you either subscribe or buy, and online access as well, you find options like you can view it in HTML format, XML format, or in PDF format. And for printing, saving and storing, you require a basic knowledge of these things. And once you store, because these are all international standard formats and which can be easily viewed using the free software downloadable and then store it and then start using it. So in that way, the formats play a very, very vital role in organizing the information for a longer period, so that the information which is stored will retain for even there is a change in the IT or the technology or the hardware or even some of the software solutions in that sense.
Yeah.
But here let me also add one basic word is, if you don't understand the format, that means some bits of information is stored. We don't know what it is. That's it. It is something like a dumping on a medium and we don't know what it is.
No, if you want to access it, you should learn, you should know what is the format in which the information is stored. Then the compatible software should be used to retrieve the information. So, Professor Amaravati garu, so we understand two terms, that is born digital and digitized documents. The two terms, what is the difference between these two?
I think the basic difference which we have to understand, what is the born digital, is the digital content which gets generated at the point of origin. Maybe a publisher or maybe a person or maybe an author or an institution, wherever the document is created, it gets created straight away in digital format. And when we are looking at digitization or the digital process, when we look at that, it is a process which can be happening anywhere, wherever there is an infrastructure. you can convert the print documents into digital documents and then make it available along with the born digital documents also. So, in that sense, the subtle difference between is one is converting the existing print documents into digital format, and another is the digital document which gets created at the point of origin. So, this is the only difference between the born digital and the digital content.
That means the analogous formats we are converting into digital
format,
formats.
yes.
Those documents are called digitized documents.
Sure, yes.
Those who are already created in the electronic format or digital format, that is called born digital documents. And in order to create a digital library, we need hardware and software.
Correct.
Professor Lakshman Rao, what type of hardware generally we need for creating a digital library?
Yeah, basically when you talk in terms of creating a digital document, what type of document are you going to create? Now, first is, let us say that you want to convert a print media into a digital media. Now, like a universal digital library is being created in most of the libraries in India. And what in that context is only print conversion. So you can go for a scanner. With the scanner, you create an image, then use OCR, then it is converted into a digital document. But when you want to go for something else like a multimedia, sound recorder, sound document or a video document, naturally you need different technologies for sound storing, then editing, then similarly image or moving pictures, how do you like video camera, then editing. And in addition to this, most important is, it is not an easy job. You need the people who can understand the technology, who will be able to edit, because the moment you say picture, it needs to be good. And the moment you say sound, it should be good. You should understand the different formats. You should understand how you will be able to store. And most important is how you will be able to integrate the sound, text, pictures. This is very important. And I don't think as a librarian or as a library staff, it becomes easy for us. It will be very, very difficult for us to create a multimedia. Of course, nothing is impossible, provided if you get the training. But as on today, we are mostly concentrating on converting our print media as well as the manuscripts into the digital media. So probably there is also, as you know, the print media, we also have pictures. The pictures can be kept somewhere else. It can be hyperlinked. That is possible. But ultimately the picture also is scanned. So we need, as on today, as far as the Indian condition is concerned, to create a digital library, we are only converting in the context of conversion. I think probably good scanners are enough. But as Professor Ram Reddy was saying, the born digital, if you are trying to create a multimedia, then you need lots and lots of equipment like cameras, sound recording system, engineers, editing. I think that's a big job.
So we need high-end computer systems because mainly the storage area, one should not forget about that, because the images, they take a lot of space. So we need a storage, highly compact storage.
Exactly, it is not only storage, speed, even random access memory, because you will be putting a lot of things, and advanced software, and compatibility between the system and the software, compatibility between the operating system and the application software. I think probably that will go into a technology point of view.
It also depends on the software what you use.
Yeah, software.
Maybe Professor Ram Reddy can tell about the software.
Yeah, in fact, I think we should categorize all of these things as an infrastructure for digitization. If a library is into digitization process, they need to have the basic infrastructure in terms of a hardware and the software. And the hardware where large storage capabilities are required to create a digital content. And for that, the technology is available where now we have external storage devices where you can go on stack by linking, and then the stackable storages can capture large amount of digital images. So in that sense, the hardware requirement is mostly available at present, and also there is a lot of R&D is going on in that direction. As Professor Lakshman Rao said, different formats. In that, when you have to store, you need all these things. And when it comes to a software which need to be used to organize the digital content, and this is a software which enables the hardware when you store the information in different formats. The software has to enable, like any other application software, even the digital content when it has to be organized in a computer, you need this particular information, and the software will enable to link the digital content and index the terms so that the content can be searchable using the terms. And in that sense, the software plays a very vital role. At present, there are internationally developed software in a commercial way that you can look at. The software which we use at the University of Hyderabad is called Visua, which is specially created for organizing the digital documents after scanning and then creating the digital document. So similarly, in case if we have to go little further into using the particular software, is that you have to organize by linking and then making authoritative files and searchable texts and other formats. And these are all inbuilt capabilities of a software. Like for library automation, we use application software. For digital documents also, there is an application software. And now there is the digital application software is available on the internet for downloading. There are like DSpace and Greenstone. They are nothing but these are very popular application software packages for downloading and then organizing the digital content. So this software can be used in any of the platforms. Most of them, it is under the Linux platform, and some are in Unix, and it can be used in different libraries which are into digitization. So in that case, the hardware and software as an infrastructure thing goes into, and then the next step is linking the computers so that the content created and you organized using the software can flow across all the computers. That's how the digital library and digital hardware and software is required.
And the most popular digital application software, that is Greenstone and also
DSpace.
Content DM, DSpace, and also recently ePrints.
ePrints.
Yes, these are four. Apart from these four, there are several other commercial software also available for the digitization process. Professor Lakshman Rao garu, if one wants to create a digital library, how they can go about it?
One digital library, first of all, we have to understand and we have to decide what will be the scope. First is, are we going to procure the CDs and put them on our system and make it available for our users? Second, are we going to convert our digital print documents into digital documents? Are we going to give hyperlink to the documents available in remote servers or remote systems? First of all, we have to understand all this. Then the question of planning of the digital library arises. I can just give one example. Universal Digital Library. What they are doing, they are scanning the print documents, converting them into digital documents, and putting them on their server and making it accessible through the web to everybody in the world. This is one way. Similarly, second, for example, I can tell you quote an example of DRTC, which is able to collect all the library science documents and put them on their server, make it accessible, because here the restriction is only the library science. Now, similarly, we will be soon able to see the Yahoo, which is also making an agreement, Google, which is making an agreement, already made some agreement because of certain reasons they could not go ahead. They want to convert all the print media to the extent possible of the universities like Oxford, Harvard, California, and then put them on their system and make it accessible to everybody. Now the question is what we want to put in, that is the basic question. Then another important thing also, we can also say, like an example, today we are in a position to get electronic journal through hyperlink. Now ultimately, unless we decide what will be the scope of the digital library we are planning, it becomes difficult. But as on today, I would like to say a library like a college or a university, what we can do is, we can procure, first is we can procure the CDs or whatever it is, and then put them on our system and make it available. That is one way of digital library, one part. Second could be, we will be able to provide access, maybe many universities are getting journals through the consortia. You are able to provide access to the journals through the consortia, through the hyperlink, that is second. Third is your print media, you can convert them. And the fourth is now e-books are available. Those things also you can put in. But the most important is you have all these things, unless you have a structured organization or proper organization, the very concept of the digital library fails, or you will not be able to provide access to the people. And unless we plan carefully what we want to do, how we want to do, how we would go ahead, then important is what type of hardware we have to choose, what type of software we need to choose. That becomes very important in designing or developing the digital library.
We thank the two experts, Professor Lakshman Rao and Professor Ramareddy Garu, coming to the studios and enlightening our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
మా కార్యక్రమాలపై మీ సూచనలు సలహాలు తెలియచేయండి. మీ సూచనలు సలహాలు తెలియచేయవలసిన చిరునామా: డైరెక్టర్, ఆడియో విజువల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ రీసెర్చ్ సెంటర్, డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, ప్రొఫెసర్ జి రామరెడ్డి మార్గ్, రోడ్ నంబర్ 46, జూబ్లీ హిల్స్, హైదరాబాద్ 500033.